A necklace got stolen from the Louvre.
There was a AP photo of 4 French policemen and then a random guy standing next to them who was wearing a 3-piece suit.
Oh my
and
God,
a
he was
jaunty
so good
fedora.
looking. The fedora guy, we love him.
The top paid AI researchers now are like, we have to keep grinding. We have to do 20 years of research in 2 weeks. We got to beat this AI clock. Like, we got to invent the AI. Whatever.
I was looking on the Rotten Tomatoes' top heist flicks.
Tomato. Yes.
You just
they were
made
like-
me so happy.
Hello and welcome to Slate Money, your guide to the business and finance news of the week. I'm Felix Salmon from Bloomberg. I am on YouTube in the Bloomberg podcast studios at 731 Lexington Avenue. It's a whole brave new world here. I am joined by Emily Peck of Axios.
Hello, hello. I'm here in my home studio from an undisclosed location.
An undisclosed location, but not far from wasps' nests. We're going to talk about that. I am joined by Elizabeth Spiers, who's coming from Pokemon Central.
Yes, I'm in my son's Pokemon-themed bedroom, which if you go to YouTube, you will see is bright orange.
Because orange is the color of Pokemon, right? It's the main color we
Charizard
associate.
is orange, and he is
Charizard
the
is
most valuable Pokemon, apparently.
We are going to talk about the Louvre Heist, of course. We have to, and it's awesome. We even have a Slate Plus segment about our favorite heist movies. We are going to talk about the government shutdown, which is another thing that is still going on, and what it means for economic data and whether ADP is screwing the Fed by not sharing their data with the Fed. We are going to talk about how hard AI researchers are working and whether that's a bad thing. It's a good one this week, so I hope you enjoy it. It's all coming up on Slate Money. Okay, so obviously, in a world of massive geopolitical trade tensions, where Donald Trump is breaking off trade negotiations with Canada, where there's a summit meeting with President Xi, where there's a war still going on in Ukraine, which everyone's trying to fix, and where we are stuck in the middle of a government blackout and we don't even know what's happening in the economy because there's no data, the most important thing in the world is a necklace got stolen from the Louvre.
Several necklaces.
Several pieces.
Felix, this
But not
is
the crown.
This is the best and chicest news to break in quite some time. We can all admit we woke up, or whenever it was on Sunday, you get a news alert, you're braced. Is it war? Is it new tariffs? What is it? It's a heist from the Louvre. It was amazing.
It's a heist from the Louvre.
What a
it's
delight.
It's the most iconic crime, and it's the most iconic museum in the world. I mean, I think that's fair to say, right?
Yes, absolutely. Most visited museum in the world. Just
and
a fact.
It's like 800,000 square feet of exhibition space, which is why, frankly, like everyone's like, oh no, the security camera was pointing in the wrong direction. But like, I do think that it's really hard if you have a museum that's 800,000 square feet that gets millions of visitors per year, that by its nature is open to the public, the thieves are robbing it during opening hours, you know, at 9:30 in the morning when it's already open. I think that, yeah, obviously you don't want this to happen and you want to take precautions to make sure it doesn't happen, but I don't think this is a major. I think that statistically speaking, this kind of thing is going to happen every so often, and this is one of those every so oftens.
Yeah, I felt bad for the director who offered to resign, and they didn't accept her resignation, but it does seem like there's not much they could have done to prevent it, really.
I mean,
Emily's like, well, let me stop you there.
I don't disagree that in the grand scheme of things, I mean, I did write down in my little list of talking points, this seems fine. Like they could spare the jewels. Also, they belong to all of France, so why not the French thieves on mopeds? Why can't they have a spin with these jewels for some time? It's their country too, right? We all get a turn.
I think
Everyone
probably
should be able to borrow the crown jewels every now and then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so first question, do we think the thieves were French? Or do we think they were like Romanian?
I like to think that they're French and like very dashing. I'm a little
Yeah.
upset that they didn't break into the Louvre during like some kind of gala event and wear tuxedos or something, a la
Exactly,
Lupin.
exactly. We want this
so-
to be a heist movie, and frankly, like this is why I really love the Ed Caesar New York Times Magazine piece from 2013, which we're going to throw in the show notes, where he's like, yeah, heists are not glamorous, romantic things like Ocean's 8. You know, they are much more, you know, just petty thieves with hammers breaking things.
But this one, they had a truck with a mechanical ladder, right?
Which, by the way, did you see the German company that makes that mechanical ladder is like, if you want things done really quickly and efficiently, use our mechanical ladder.
I mean, it's a good ad. It took them, what,
says-
7 minutes?
When you need to move fast. And I love the little line underneath that says something like, your Bacher Agile transports your treasures up to 400 kilograms, quiet as a whisper.
And they were so fast. I mean, they set off the alarms, but the security in the Louvre couldn't reach them fast enough, or maybe was trying to keep people safe rather than the jewels from the Empress, you know, who was married to Napoleon. They cared less about.
The reason why we know this was a little bit Keystone Cops and shambolic was that the prize jewel that they stole, Princess Eugenie's crown, they just kind of dropped on the way out. And so that, like, it got dinged a bit when they dropped it, but they didn't even manage to, I don't think that even managed to leave the building.
Right. And one of the stories was like quoting Anthony Roman, a private investigator with art crime experience, which, what does that mean? We don't know. Does he experience doing the crime or investigating the crime?
I have lots of
left
experience
unclear.
doing
Many
art
questions.
crimes. Yeah.
But he said, if the thieves are going to drop a crown, they're not pros. I think they are pros because they were like, you got to move fast. If something drops, you just keep going. Like if you stop to pick up the crown, you could get nabbed. So it makes sense to me that they just let the crown go, to be honest.
I love, one of my favorite bits of the discourse around this is, you know, shock, horror, the jewels were not insured. It's like, guys, you cannot insure the entire Louvre. That's like not possible. That's like conservatively $100 billion worth of art. Let me just do the math for you here, because if you manage to get a super low insurance premium of like 0.5% a year, that would be $500 million a year in insurance premiums, which is, you know, these jewels were valued at $100 million. But like, even if you could find the $500 million to, you know, which you can't, then there's no insurance capacity. The entire insurance capacity in London for this kind of thing is like $4 billion total. Like, you can't insure this, which is why, you know, what the French government says and what all major state museums say is we self-insure, you know? Like, and honestly, if you look at the value of stuff that has been stolen from the Louvre over the past 20 or 30 years, it works out to much less than any insurance premium would have been.
Does it make more sense to rob, if you're going to do a jewelry heist, is it smarter actually to steal jewels from the Louvre than like your run-of-the-mill jewelry store, which probably has like more elaborate security than the Louvre?
Well, yes and no. It makes sense to steal jewels from the Louvre, but not for that reason. The Louvre security is not quite as bad as people are making out. If it was as bad as people are making out, then we would see many more Louvre heists. But the reason why you want to steal an ancient piece of jewelry rather than a modern piece of jewelry is that all modern jewelry has little microscopic serial numbers basically on all of the diamonds. So they will be registered as being stolen, and if any jeweler gets given one of those diamonds to, you know, offered to, like, you know, would you like to buy my diamond, sir? They will see the serial number. They will look up the serial number. They'll be like, oh, this was stolen from such and such a shop, and then they'll turn you in and get the reward. So one of the great things about this Louvre jewels is that no one has laser etched them with serial numbers.
But even then, wouldn't it make sense to steal from like say a slightly more obscure museum than the Louvre. I mean, but also in my mind, I'm a, James Bond obsessive. So I imagine some scenario where people steal the crown jewels and then secretly sell them to some billionaire who wants to just put them in a room and stare at them and say, I own this for the rest of their lives. But you can't really, it's hard to sell these things, right? You have to.
It's super hard. It's super hard to sell these things. Basically, what you need to do, because the jewels are recognizable, what you need to do is find a crooked diamond cutter, take all of the jewels apart, and the jewels are the French national patrimony, and like it's the minute you take the jewels apart and melt down the gold, you've destroyed, probably 3/4 of the value of the jewels right there, right? Just by ripping it all apart. And then you need to take it to a diamond cutter and get them to like recut the diamonds so they're not recognizably the same diamonds anymore. And then that diamond cutter is going to charge you a fortune because obviously they know where it's all from. And so the whole thing is just incredibly economically inefficient. They're destroying a massive amount of value. And no, there aren't a lot of like evil mustache twirling billionaires out there who are like, I would happily pay you $10 million just to be able to parade around in an emerald necklace. Like, no. This reminds me, by the way, I have to say, that little digression here. One of my favorite stories in the art world of all time was when Iliana Sonnabend died, the great art dealer. She owned a Robert Rauschenberg work called Canyon, which is on display at the Museum of Modern Art. And when she died, the IRS wanted to levy an estate tax on the value of that piece. The problem is that piece has a bald eagle on it, and under various bits of law, you're not allowed to sell anything with bald eagles.
What?
So yeah, like bald eagles, it's a federal crime. It's a felony to conduct any commerce in stuffed bald eagles or dead.
Oh,
bald
it was an
eagles
actual real bald eagle. Okay,
exactly.
Carry on.
And so like basically what the estate said was, the value of this painting is zero because it is a felony to sell it. We are not allowed to sell it. And what the IRS said was, but you could sell it to an evil mustache twirling, Chinese billionaire who would pay you for it. And we're going to charge you estate tax on the value that the evil billionaire would pay. And everyone was like, what? No, this is crazy. But yeah, no, those billionaires don't exist.
Well, there's another second day story that sort of reinforced how much people romanticized art heists. There was an AP photo of 4 French policemen and then a random guy standing next to them who was wearing a 3-piece suit.
Oh my
and
God,
a
he was
jaunty
so good
fedora.
looking. The fedora guy, we love him.
And he just looked like the platonic ideal of a French investigator, detective, whatever, from the 1950s.
He is literally, like, if you look up the word soigner in the dictionary, this guy comes up.
So my question is then, like, what even is the value of these jewels? Because, I mean, all the reporting was they were worth $102 million, but they're not. Because once you take them out of the context of the museum, just like you outlined, Felix, like they have to be broken up and that's not going to come out to $102 million. So it's almost like things in museums are worth a lot because they're in museums. And once you kind of take them out of museums, it's like the stuff in your grandma's house, it's sentimentally of value, sure, but like no one really can do anything with it.
As we have discussed on this show, the value of diamonds has been plunging because,
yes,
fake, like lab-grown diamonds are very good now. You can take out all the diamonds, take them to a corrupt diamond cutter, get them recut, sell them. You might be able to get 7 figures for them if you're lucky. A lot of the discourse, I mean, it's not very long since we had an entire Slate Money segment on the price of gold. A lot of the discourse is about, or maybe what they were really after was the gold that they are set in rather than the jewels themselves. And or rather than the stones themselves, I should say. And yeah, again, like this is beautifully worked, ultra high craftsmanship, and they're going to take all of that and just melt it down and be like, oh yeah, we can sell this gold for $4,000 an ounce. It's depressing and sad. It is not like romantic and sexy.
I did have a few other hot takes. One, there were like a list of examples in one of the stories. Like these heists happen often. These museums aren't being kept up. They're not safe. They're not well staffed enough. And I was like, is the Louvre heist like a signal of the demise of liberal democracies and neoliberalism? I don't know. We're letting our precious, souvenirs, they're just souvenirs, right? Be stolen and squirreled away, and like leaving the front door open to our museums. Like it's all falling apart. That was one of my hot takes.
I'm gonna come back to that one and say like the golden era of heists was much more the 60s and 70s than it is right now. And I think that museums in general are much more secure than they were. And actually, liberal democracy has done quite a good job of protecting our cultural patrimony compared to 50 or 60 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe not the White House, but otherwise. Sure.
I mean, yes, exactly. On the heels of the White House just being knocked down, half of it or something. I'm not paying attention to that because it's like too much to bear.
East Wing is gone kaput.
Who cares?
It was built by Teddy Roosevelt in 1902.
Yeah, so everything's falling apart and crumbling. That's the hot take
Okay,
that
that's
I'm
the
weekly
hot
standing
take.
by. And
Okay.
the other one is that museums are one of our few remaining tactile places. It's as everything has moved online in our 2025 world, we can still go to a museum and see things in real life in person, and that is important. That's my second hot take. It's a little more lukewarm, I think.
That's a lukewarm take, and and I hope that you are correct about that. I would like to believe that you are correct about that. I do worry about the way in which museums are virtualizing themselves and insisting on putting video screens in places, and the rise. I'm taking some solace in the fact that the sort of project art onto screens museums, the Hall des Lumières or Super Blue or, all like Refik Anadol and this kind of stuff seems to have had its moment and is in the past now more than in the future. People got very excited about it for a minute, like 4 or 5 years ago, and it doesn't seem to have fulfilled the hopes that people had. And I do really hope that nowadays we are going back to a world where people would much rather go and see, a Van Gogh painting in person than to go see like the immersive Van Gogh show. But, so maybe you're right. I will sign on to your lukewarm take.
Yay. Oh, and the third thing, not really a hot take, just a point to make, which is that stealing things can make them more valuable. Mona Lisa was stolen,
and that
they
was
got
how
it
it
back,
became so famous.
and that is how it became so famous. So in the long run, who knows how this actually works out? Very soon there could be long lines to see these very jewels back at the Louvre.
I think that's right. I have been to the Louvre, a fair number of times over the years, and I have to admit that when historically, if I'd ever made it over to the Apollo Gallery, I'd be like, oh, jewels, and just wander on while looking for a painting somewhere. But probably the next time I go to the Louvre, I'll be like, oh look, there's the crown they stole.
Exactly, the crown they stole is going to be huge. There's going to be big lines for it. Elizabeth, don't you think?
Yeah. If they get it back, that's
the crown is back. They dropped it. Remember?
They'll probably update the little card or whatever they put by the displays, and they'll be like, this was dropped by chic thieves on mopeds making their escape.
In my local art museum when I was growing up, the Dulwich Picture Gallery, there was this very little Rembrandt that was called the Takeaway Rembrandt because it had been stolen 6 times.
Fun. Did you try and steal it? I could see you as an art thief.
Oh, I yeah, totally. That's definitely my my avocation right there. But let's move on and talk a little bit about this whole shutdown situation, because we're 3 weeks into it now and no end in sight. And my first big question, I guess, for you, Elizabeth, is, have you noticed any difference? Has anything really, have you noticed the fact that we don't have a government?
I think me personally, no, but I'm not really affected by the stuff that would affect people. You know, I'm not somebody who works for the government who's not getting a paycheck right now. I'm not someone who's dealing with services that have been suspended. So I do think there are people who are feeling this. That's just not, you know, me personally, or probably you.
No, but I mean, but like, what percentage of the U.S. population do you think is feeling this?
I would say lower income people in particular are feeling it.
Why low income?
Well, because a lot of the services that people are dependent on for funding at the local level are funded by federal agencies that are suspended right now.
But if it's local, then like the local agencies aren't suspended, right? And they can always just wait to get reimbursed by the feds for whenever the government.
But that's the point. If you need to get a check next week, like it's not going to happen. You know, this is disrupting services that people actually need.
Wait. If who needs, like, if the local agency needs to get a check next week, because the local agency, like, they can just borrow it from the bank.
No, like some things aren't. So Social Security and disability, they're still carrying on. They haven't been shut down, so people are getting that money. But like Head Start programs, which are preschool programs for poor kids, some of their funding has already been cut off because of the shutdown, and I think more is expected. Then on November 1st, if we're still shut down, which is kind of looking like we will be, that's when the money for SNAP runs out. And that's when like a lot of people will really be affected because they won't have money for food. But that hasn't happened yet.
But just to be clear, because I'm a little bit, I genuinely don't know. When you say that the money for Head Start programs has not been flowing, does that mean that the Head Start program's not happening, or that the people paying for the Head Start programs just haven't been reimbursed by the government yet?
For some Head Start programs, it's my understanding that they will have to shutter. They won't be able to go.
But they haven't shuttered yet.
I think a few have, according to the news reports I'm seeing, but not. Yeah. Most of them have not.
Most of them have not, right?
That's
so like
correct.
In terms of the real world impact of the shutdown, even the people who are consuming these Head Start programs, even if the money isn't flowing, up until now, they have still been consuming them.
Mm-hmm. And for federal workers, a lot of them, their most recent paycheck was just like a little lower than the one before because it covered like 70% was pre-shutdown of the last paycheck they got. But the paychecks that are coming will be zero checks. There are no paychecks coming. In other words, unless they have guns.
That would be such a Trump move, though, to send everyone a check saying like zero.
Zero.
Yeah. And this is the fault of the Democrats. It's like blame Chuck Schumer for your zero check.
The other big impact I think we are seeing now is that the delays at airports and things, as like the air traffic controllers stay home and things like that. That is happening now. And you'll see more reports about that, I think, as this rolls along. Because those air traffic controllers are required to come to work. They just aren't going to get paid. So they start to no-show a little more. In the last shutdown, the last Trump shutdown anyway, in 2019, conventional wisdom is because they stopped coming to work is why there was pressure to end that particular shutdown.
Hey, before we get back to the show, I want to tell you about The Slatest, Slate's daily newsletter that lands in your inbox every evening. It's written by Slate's editor-in-chief, Hilary Frey, and it's the perfect way to end your day a little smarter. Every issue pulls together the sharpest stories, the most surprising news, the can't-miss Slate podcasts, plus smart analysis and a bit of well-earned distraction. From DC to Hollywood to the mysterious algorithm, The Slatest keeps you clued in to the world and to Slate. You can sign up right now at slate.com/theslatest.
Also, we should mention, because this does affect, our coverage on Slate Money, the shutdown also means that the Fed isn't getting data that they need.
Right. So this is from day one, and we've mentioned this, like the first day of the first time that there was a Slate Money after the shutdown. We're like, the main thing that people are bellyaching about is the Fed isn't going to be able to have the data that it needs to be what they love to call data dependent. And so now what the hell are they going to do? And there was a fascinating story this week about how, they don't get the BLS data, but they get the ADP data. ADP is a private company, and ADP shares their data with the Fed. ADP, if you get a paycheck, There is like a 20% chance if you work in the private sector and you get a paycheck that paycheck is processed by ADP. Like ADP has incredibly granular information about millions of workers, and they shared that information with the Fed on a very granular basis. And the Fed was like, this is awesome. And then one of the Fed governors, Chris Waller, gave a speech saying, this is awesome, back in August. And then David Dayen found out for the American Prospect, for some reason that no one entirely understands, ADP was like, well, actually, fuck you, no, and stopped sharing the data. And then, like, and this was just like a month or two, or just like, a few weeks before the Fed started really needing it. And so far, the ADP has not turned it back on.
Well, there was some speculation that part of the reason was, providing data is not ADP's core business. It's payroll servicing. And so they were a little bit worried, according to the speculators at least, that providing the Fed with data might imperil some of their client relationships, presumably if the Fed made decisions based on it that the clients didn't like.
This puzzles me. Like the clients, if I'm a corporate client of ADP, I would be so incredibly happy if that made monetary policy better. That's just like gravy. I don't understand why I'd be upset about that.
They're worried about it making monetary policy worse, though. That's the liability angle.
So explain.
So let's say the Fed does something. You run a big construction company or big developer, and the Fed makes a decision that you don't like. And you believe that ADP had some role in facilitating that decision, fairly or not. That could be a point of tension between your company and ADP. And I think that's what ADP is anticipating, because that is their core business. It's not providing data to anybody.
Well, I mean, so I don't know. Like, I remember when ADP revamped their jobs data a couple years ago. I wrote about it for Axios. I talked to Eric Brynjolfsson, friend of the pod at Stanford, who was very involved in putting this data together. He was talking about how like they were super proud about being able to open source this data. They were putting it up on Fred. Now, the stuff that they release on a monthly basis and the stuff they put up on Fred, they are still releasing on a monthly basis. It is still public. The Fed has access to it. The stuff that they cut the Fed off from was like the super granular weekly data that was never public. But it was always a point of pride for ADP that this was something they could do. Obviously, they weren't making a lot of money from it, but it really did give them a bunch of like kudos and access and,
Don't you think
fuzzies.
the Fed decision making, though, is more politicized right now than it probably was 5 years ago?
Yeah, of course.
3 years ago, perhaps. Like 5 years ago, it was Trump won, and that was still very politicized.
But it's more now. I mean, he's trying to fire people. And anyway, I think maybe the deal is like that other ADP data that we all look at and use is public to everyone. But this ADP data had like a tinge of like, I don't know, secrecy, or in a way that maybe made it a little weirder. Like maybe they were worried. This is full speculation. I didn't even read anyone speculating this. Maybe they were worried there would be demand, from other people to see the data the Fed gets or some kind of thing like that. And they didn't want to share it. And maybe it was granular and private information about specific companies. We don't know. Like, do we know very much about the actual reports that the Fed got from ADP? I do not think we do.
Anyway, I am coming out here using my highly influential bully pulpit as one of the 3 hosts of Slate Money to humbly request the powers that be at ADP to turn this information pipe back on, because the Fed needs your data. Do it, people, because the BLS is MIA.
We need just the shutdown to end and the BLS to pump out its data again. We got a little taste of what that life was like. I mean, on Friday when we're taping, they released a CPI report. It's the only data report they put out all month, and it made the markets really happy, gave journalists something to do. You did ask, like, has this shutdown affected people's lives? The journalists, the economic journalists, they have no data. They're just writing takes every day. It's hard for them.
Okay, number one, why do we have CPI?
We have CPI today. October 24th, Friday, because the Social Security Administration needs to calculate the cost of living adjustment for Social Security recipients, and they base it on this month is like the last piece of the puzzle for them to come out. They just announced on Friday the raise will be 2.8%. So the White House said they were statutorily required to come up with the COLA. They didn't want to be late with it. They don't want to upset the seniors. So that's why they called back the BLS employees just to do that report. They haven't compiled any new data in October on CPI. So I don't know how that's going to work once the shutdown ends. They're going to be like all these agencies are going to be behind in their data reports. Like we're supposed to get GDP the end of next week. And even if the government reopens, I think it'll take them some time to like actually make that happen. So everything's going to be a little delayed and a little dodgy. And the longer this goes on, like the worse it's going to get. And we might just like be missing some things, which I think
there
is
might
really
be a couple
sad.
data points that we missed, and that would
Yeah.
be sad. And then, but no, okay. So to answer your question about what journalists can do, and specifically what Washington-based financial journalists can do, which is a very like
It's a thin slice.
wonkish
All three of them?
subset. My answer is very clear, which is start really cultivating all of your sources in Treasury to start pointing their fucking cameras at the East Wing. Because, like, all of the photographs we have of what's going on at the East Wing of the White House are all, like, you know, terrible angles and satellite photos and stuff because the Treasury building is in the way. And so what we need is all of the journalists to get their sources to be taking good photographs from the windows of Treasury, which is the best view of being able to see what's going on.
I guess I should follow what's going on with the East Wing and not just ignore it. Like I said earlier, all I know is it was knocked down.
The East Wing is RIP. The East Wing is gone. The colonnade that connected the White House to the East Wing, that's gone. And
this is after Trump saying that he wasn't going to touch it. But this is, you remember when Trump bought the Bonwit Teller building and turned it into Trump Tower, he sort of did the same thing. He said that he was going to keep those beautiful Art Deco friezes and donate them to the Met. And then he instructed workers to just rip them off the building and throw them into the interior. And he's still angry that people are mad at him for that. But obviously it hasn't changed his behavior because he's doing basically the same thing here.
What was in the East Wing?
it was like a bunch of offices, and it was the main entrance that people would go into whenever they entered the White House. And so if you're a visitor to the White House, if you know or anything like that, you would go in through the East Wing.
Oh, I think I've been there.
And it was historically also where the First Lady would have her offices. And I believe it would have been where the First Gentleman had his offices if Kamala had won.
So where's Melania's offices now? Does she not
So
have
In
one?
New York.
Melania,
Mar-a-Lago.
Melania famously just never used it. Like all of the first ladies in history have been very active users of the East Wing, except for Hillary, apparently, who was more of a West Wing person.
Oh, right. That was a big thing. Like she was
Yeah.
going to be in the West Wing and like, oh no.
But Melania has no particular interest in that kind of thing, and so she just hangs out, in Trump Tower in New York.
And so the issue is he just did it kind of like without asking anyone for permission.
Exactly. It's always better to ask forgiveness than permission,
Right. We know that.
Because if he'd asked permission, they would have said no.
They would have said no. It would have dragged on and on. There have been 1,000 stories about his fight to demolish the East Wing.
Well, he also just doesn't think that he has to do any of that because he doesn't think any normal laws apply to him. But the last big renovation of the White House was under Truman, and it was the West Wing, and it was because the West Wing was a fire hazard, because when they electrified it under Coolidge, they made all these mistakes, and so they had to renovate it in part. And Truman went to great lengths to preserve everything in there that was historical and also to just maintain the outside part of it. And Trump just went in there with the bulldozer and said, fuck all of this.
So that's why people are mad.
Yeah, and
There
with
are
Truman,
there
there
are
were
so many
congressional...
reasons
Yeah.
why people are mad.
People are
Emma.
just so mad. They should just be delighted because there was a Louvre heist and just ignore the rest.
Well, okay. You know what? I think we should have a Slate Plus segment on like heist movies, because I feel like this is the reason why you are so into the heist. Is because I was looking on the internet at like Rotten Tomatoes' top heist
Rotten
flicks.
Tomato. Yes.
And,
You just
there were
made
like
me so happy.
and there are 88 of them. There are 88 heist movies on the list. We will talk about that in Slate Plus. We don't have time for that now because we have to have a numbers round.
No, we have to do a third topic.
996. That's right.
Oh, that's right. We have to have a third topic. Like, guys.
Remember how this works?
It's only been a decade. I can't be expected to keep up with where I am in the show. We don't just throw this show together. You know?
I thought you were doing like a fun thing because you're like, it's the numbers round. The number is 996. And then we would talk about it.
Wait, okay. Emily, what is 996?
Felix, 996 is the practice of working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week, i.e. a 72-hour work week. The term was popularized in China, where people eventually got so overworked and so sick of it, and perhaps some workers even died from overwork. I don't know the details there, that a court in China even said, like, we need to cut this out. Now, U.S. tech firms in Silicon Valley have adopted 996 as like the standard mode of work and are actually advertising 72-hour in-person work weeks and more.
Yeah, but let's
to their
be
well-paid
very
employees.
specific
Let's
about
be
this.
specific.
It is very specifically AI teams. It is just AI. No one else is like going out there saying, we want you to work 996. We need you in office 6 days a week. But there is this feeling in the AI world that things are moving incredibly fast, that there's a winner-takes-all kind of thing going on, that, you know, the entire science of AI can change between Thursday and Friday or between Saturday and Sunday. And there's been a bunch of reporting about this, which I like because they've talked to a bunch of different people, and there does seem to be this through line of people basically saying we are working incredibly hard, and this is one of the reasons why we're getting these 7 or even 8-figure salaries. But we want to. And the super interesting thing, in contradistinction to the, you know, first-year analysts at Morgan Stanley or the, you know, put-upon salaryman in China, is that, like, a lot of this really does seem to be just like, this is what they want to do.
I think that's true for a certain subset of, you know, AI researchers who feel like they are under time pressure to achieve certain milestones. But I will say that the hustle bro culture has always been part of Silicon Valley. And maybe it's coming back a little bit. I feel like it went down a little bit during the pandemic, partly because people had to do remote work. But to me, it reminds me of the first .com boom where the co-founders of Yahoo would brag about sleeping under their desks and never going home.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, exactly. It's like Elon saying that it's going to be extremely hardcore. There's a bunch of venture capitalists who are putting together like a grind index, like how hard do you grind? And it's very Silicon Valley bro in its own way. I am fascinated, though, at the way that it does seem to be confined to AI.
I don't think it does, though. I don't, you know, I feel like I just don't see that anecdotally from, it really is pervasive in a lot of tech companies, AI or not, if especially if they're Valley-based.
Well, I mean, the thing that we're talking about, that, just to be clear, is companies that are going out, you know, and when they're advertising for jobs, the first thing it says is, this is a job that requires coming into the office 6 days a week. We want to be very, very open about that. And we are Silicon Valley grind hustlers, or whatever the hell they want to call themselves. And some people want that and some people don't. And if you don't, that's fine. But like, we want someone who wants that. And I do think this is unhealthy, but I also do think this is on some level, you know, it's consenting adults, you know?
So I have a hot take about this, which is that when these companies sort of promote this culture, and they know, you know, that despite all claiming to be data-driven, they know that we know from research that over a certain number of hours, you become less productive, and things like sleep deprivation affect your cognitive performance. but they're promoting it anyway. And the people who really are harmed by this are disproportionately women, especially if they're at the age where you have children, because the women always end up in the caregiver roles, and you just end up with a less diverse workplace as a result. Return to office mandates, I think, are having the same effect.
And it's not good overall for, if you think about it, and the AI, I agree that it does seem to be very AI driven. And there's a great piece in the journal about how the top paid AI researchers now are like, we have to keep grinding. We have to do 20 years of research in 2 weeks. We got to beat this AI clock. Like, we got to invent the AI, whatever. So this lack of diversity, which I agree with Elizabeth's hot take, you get a certain kind of person who wants to work 100-hour weeks,
or who can,
everyone quoted I saw was very young, in their 20s. I think you're locking out, women, whatever. Think about what you're doing. You're inventing or iterating on artificial intelligence, which allegedly is going to be the driver of our economy for the next, I don't know, half a century, 10 years, 5 years, 2 weeks, whatever. And you're relying on this very specific type of people to innovate on it, to come up with how it works, to invent it. You're sort of you're setting us all up for the same old when it comes to new technologies, new solutions, like what they're going to be focused on, like another decade of, pizza delivery apps or whatever, instead of other things we might need more than a more diverse cast of researchers or scientists might come up with.
Maybe. I mean, I don't. It might be true. It's entirely possible that it's true. One of the things that fascinates me is the way that probably the highest paid employee in the entire AI universe is this guy, Alexander Wang, who got acqui-hired by Mark Zuckerberg at Meta. And he is the person who's like in charge of their AI, what's the word? Subsidiary division, whatever. And he's throwing around 8-9 figure salaries to people to do incredible work. And obviously, if you are able to get like a $100 million salary, you have a very specific set of skills. This is not like a fungible job where they'll be like, well, if you don't want it, we'll get someone else. And what Alexander Wang has also been doing, was reported this week, is going out and firing like 600 other AI people at Meta. And we do seem to be entering this world where the number of AI researchers is not really going up. That demand for a very small number of researchers is almost infinite, but demand for AI researchers in general is not. And there's like a few humans who both want to be working incredibly hard, are working incredibly hard, and are being paid incredibly well. And this is just like this weird bubble in money and prestige and work for those few humans. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit because of exactly what Elizabeth was saying about like productivity falls off after you start working a certain number of hours per week. And I think that is broadly true for the workforce as a whole. But I also am 100% convinced that everyone in Silicon Valley is convinced that if you are, this famous like 100x engineer or even a 10x engineer, then, you can suffer a 30% diminution in probability in productivity, and you're still like a 70x engineer or a 7x engineer, and you're still so much better than anyone else.
But what is the work we're talking about? I read this book and I interviewed Cal Newport on our show last year, I think, Slow Productivity. And he has all these examples of, I think he points to like Sir Isaac Newton, Jane Austen, the guy who came up with the idea for CSI, the CBS TV show that spawned 1,000 spin-off TV shows. And like true original ideas and innovations, yes, they take hard work and experience and knowledge, but they're also, it's like a slow build, like you guys know, you're writers too. Like you have an idea. Sometimes it comes to you while you're just like laying in bed before you fall asleep or like in the shower. Like you need a little bit of time to like mentally process things before you come up with something really good.
Showers are so important for coming up with things.
It's not like time spent at a computer or like 996 schedule grinding it out will get you to those ideas. Like you need to take a step back sometimes.
Taking time is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I have to say, like, one of the things I'm super enjoying in the move from Axios to Bloomberg, because I'm not really doing news anymore, is I have the luxury of having a lot more time to be able to spend on my stories. And a story that I would have spent a day or two writing at Axios is a story that I will now spend like 2 or 3 weeks writing at Bloomberg. Maybe I'll do other things at the same time. But just being able to have all of those showers in between and be able to just think, it's just like percolating in the back of my head. And I'll go around and I'll twiddle a couple of sentences here and there. And at the end of the day, it's a better article. It's not 10 times better, even if I spent 10 times more days writing it, but it's better, and that's great.
Well, also to go back to your 10x engineer example, though, if you are the 10x engineer, you are probably somebody who has a lot of decision-making power and a lot of responsibility. And after 60 hours a week, your cognitive performance really drops off enough that in a lot of productivity studies, it starts to go negative. And the thing is, if you're talking about these super talented, but, also very powerful within the organization engineers, do you want them making major decisions about AI once their cognitive ability starts going into that negative territory?
One of my big sort of theory, I think I had a podcast, I can't remember, but I think I had a podcast with Arianna Huffington once about this, about the financial crisis. And if you read Too Big to Fail, the Andrew Ross Sorkin sort of TikTok about the financial crisis of 2008 and what happened in like around September 2008, there was the one through line is no one is getting enough sleep. And people are working through the weekend and we need to like do the bailout before Asia opens and all of this kind of stuff, right? And you get all of these stories about Tim Geithner's phoning up all of these bank CEOs and trying to orchestrate mergers on like a 3-minute time horizon. And no one is taking a minute to just take a breath. And I do think that a lot of very bad decisions were made over those months because people weren't getting enough sleep. And people felt they just didn't have time. There was too much stuff coming, too much, stuff happening too quickly, and they just didn't have the luxury of sleep. But yeah, I do think that definitely hurt the world, for sure.
There's also something to unpack here about the discrepancy paradox of AI, which is supposed to I know you don't want to talk about this, Felix. I don't care. I'm bringing it up. AI, which is supposed to put us all out of work and increase productivity, pushing people to work 72 to 100-hour work weeks. Like if AI is supposed to get us to stop working, why is it making people work so much more? Is this just like a temporary phase before we all retire and are pushed out of our jobs? Or is this just the cold reality of innovation?
There was that one woman who runs an AI company who was quoted basically saying, yeah, we should be working 24/7, but it should be our AI agents who are working 24/7, not us.
And I spoke to one startup, I think over the summer, that had gone to a 4-day work week because they were using AI. And I spoke to their founder and he was like, yeah, it does things a lot faster. So we don't need to work 5 days a week. We can't keep up with the AI. Like we need time to understand what it's doing for us with coding or whatever. So we're actually working less now because AI is taking on a lot of our work.
I think that's true. I think outside this like very, this little baby Silicon Valley bubble of people actually building the AI models, I don't think that AI is making people work more.
I think it is. I think people are scared because there's been 1,000 and million bajillion articles, some written by AI, that says that AI is taking over. And if you don't understand it, you're like going to lose your job or be obsolete or whatever. So I think it's freaking people out. At the same time, as Elizabeth said, we're out of this pandemic phase where employers for a minute, they were like, maybe we should make workers happy and have lives. There was like a little time where that was a thing. That's over. Now is the time to maybe we should scare the crap out of people and make them fear for their jobs consistently so that they work harder, kind of a time. And, and you have the policy from the White House that sort of like reinforces that. So I think we're in this moment where we're being told we're obsolete at the same time we're being told to work like our asses off. And it makes no sense.
I want to hear from the smartest people in the world, i.e. the Slate Money listeners. Slate Money at slate.com. Are you working harder because of AI? If you are, let us know and let us know why. Is it as Emily implies, out of fear, that you think that the way to outrun the AI is to just work harder, and then the AI can't replace your job because you're so good at your job because you're working hard?
Or are you going Felix's route and working less?
Or are you going Felix's
going
route?
Slower, thinking
go
slower.
Slow. Think slow, people.
Taking more showers.
Take more showers. It is how to improve your comparative advantage over the robots.
And smell good.
And honestly,
hygiene is important.
When was the last time you met an AI that smelled good?
That's a good point.
Riddle me that. All right, now we are actually going to have a numbers round. I'm going to start with 112, which is the number of percent that Beyond Meat stock rose in like 2 hours on, Wednesday morning, only to then turn around and fall back and close down on the day. That basically there was this sort of 3-hour period in the morning of the trading day where the stock opens, it more than doubles, it then does a U-turn and crashes back down and closes basically down 1% on the day. And if you were just sort of slept through the morning, you would be like nothing has changed. But meanwhile, there's been all of this chaos, and it just meme stocks are still alive, people, and they're moving even faster than ever.
And Beyond Meat, the stock is like it's like $1 or something, or $2. Like
it's like $3.
It's not good. You would think they would be doing much better because the price of beef is so high right now. You'd think like a beef substitute would be crushing. So my conclusion is that this company, the stuff might not be that good.
But I think the reason why the price of beef is so high, a large part of it, well, there's lots of parts of it, and we've talked about it on the show, but a large part of it is people, demand is going up. People just want to eat their burgers.
Yeah, that's very expensive though. I mean, steak, you know what? We've talked about this.
We've talked about
Rolling along. Let's move along.
Yeah, let's roll along, Emily. What's your number?
I'm also doing a percent, 43. 43%. That is the drop in food allergy rates in children from 2017 to 2020, 2017 to 2020, after new guidance was issued saying that you should introduce babies to peanut products. There's been this big fall in peanut allergies among children.
That's awesome.
This came
I love
out.
good news numbers.
Good news, guys. I was really excited about it. It was out this week from the Medical Journal of Pediatrics. And I guess when they first started changing the guidance back in 2015, people were afraid because the guidance used to be don't introduce this stuff to kids because it could be bad for them. Then you remember all the hand wringing about peanut allergies that used to go on in the early aughts. People were always freaking out about the peanut allergies. And then there were some people who were like, just let it go. With COVID, they're like, some kids will there's a famous Louis C.K. joke where he's like, it'll sort out the weak ones, whatever. Just a joke. But now there's been this progress and it's heartening and people listen to this guidance and I think they'll listen to it even more. And there's sanity out there. People listen to the research sometimes.
Serve your babies peanut butter because it is an amazingly rich form of nutrition. It's the thing that you give malnourished kids in, parts of the world where kids really suffer from malnourishment is peanut butter, basically. It's the most incredibly magical thing in the world. It gives you all of the nutrients you need in a little small packet. Do it. Go peanuts. We like peanuts. Although I have to say I'm kind of into the almond butter these days. But anyway.
I go back and forth. I like had an almond butter phase, and then I was like, wait, peanut butter is better. Like we've just been scammed to pay more money for the almond butter because it's so much more expensive.
Elizabeth, what's your number?
My number is $250, and that's dollars. And for $250, you can get a designer wasp nest, or as the New York Times calls it, an alternative house plant to add to your interior decor so that you have some nature inside.
Yes, I a few years ago, we have massive wasp nests around where I live. Huge, like so bigger than my head, dangling from trees. You see them everywhere when the leaves start falling. And one year we had a really big one on my back porch, and I had to have someone come and like get rid of it because it was terrifying. And he was like, do you want to keep it? A lot of people keep these things. What?
Yeah, the logic is that
What, and they pay $250 for them? I mean, I'm assuming that this is like sans wasps.
Is sans,
Yes,
sans
yes. So apparently the wasps all leave after the first frost. So that's when people go out and gather them. And I understand wanting some nature in your house. But just personally, as I was reading this, I feel like if I walked past a wasp nest, in my house every day, it would just stress me out, just subconsciously. My lizard brain would be like, this is bad.
Yes.
It's like being exposed to peanut butter. You get used to it and then it's fine.
They're so fat. I kind of get it though, because whenever I see one, and they're everywhere where I live, like no joke, you guys. I had one in the trunk of my car. They had like started making a nest like in the corner of the trunk. Like me and my daughter were like, will you open it? I'm not opening it. Will you open it? But they're so fascinating.
You were going for the sacrificial daughter thing. You were like,
are you
hey,
brave?
Kid, you open it.
You're young.
I dare you.
And for 1 year, I got really obsessed with these pictures from like Georgia, where like the wasp nests would take over like an entire car, like an abandoned car would like be turned into a wasp. You've gotten me down a path where I cannot get off. So we just need to cut me off because I am so obsessed with the wasp nests. I don't understand it really. They look like they're made of paper. I'll just keep talking about it.
Send us your photograph of your interior decor wasp nest. Slate Money at slate.com.
What a good number.
It's a good number. $250. I mean, bargain, really. And just think, like, if your kid needs to supplement their income, they can just go out in the woods near where Emily lives and grab a bunch of wasps' nests and sell them for $250 a pop.
Yeah.
Free money, people. It's just growing on trees. When was the last time that you actually saw money growing on trees? It really happens. That's it for us this week, unless you want to treat yourselves to our Slate Plus segment on heist movies. Thanks to Jessamine Molly and Shana Roth for producing. Thanks for keeping us all posted on your goings-on Slate Money at slate.com. Thanks for watching us on YouTube, now that we are now a proper YouTube channel on video. And we will be back next week with more Slate Money. Remember to check out The Slatest, Slate's daily newsletter. It's your daily update on the most urgent, surprising, and unusual news delivered straight to your inbox. A special thanks to our Slate Plus members. If you haven't already, consider joining. Slate Plus members get unlimited access to all of Slate's journalism and help support our independent reporting.